Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfgang Riebe and I'm a strategic communication speaker. Today I'm going to be interviewing Wolfgang Riebe. Hello. You have a German name, but you have a South African accent, and you market yourself as a strategic interpersonal communication specialist, but you also work as a corporate magician. That can be really confusing. Would you mind explaining to the viewers how this all came about? Most people follow a traditional organizational career path for stability and, of course, upskilling themselves. I've always been different, and I followed a protean individual path where my criterion for success has been internal, and I've continually taken the responsibility on myself to adapt and align myself to the ever-changing world out there, and as such, becoming a specialist in my field. You're going to have to expand on that a little more. My parents were war refugees as children, and they fled Germany in the 1950s. Sie haben sich in Südafrika getroffen und dort bin ich auch aufgewachsen. German was my mother tongue and still is. English en natuurlijk ook Afrikaans, which is a West Germanic language descended from Dutch. As a youngster, I was always a bit of a loner. But I had an incredibly active imagination, which my parents promoted, thankfully. And I believed in magic and fantasy. And even at that time, I realized that this cognitive conformity of the majority of humanity was not quite for me. So I decided to keep myself busy with the unconventional undertakings, which would include magic tricks and ice skating. Can you believe it? If anything, I think that was as against the grain as you can go even for the first world. Now, never mind even initiating the thought that you could get an ice rink in Africa. You know, my classmates, they played rugby, and I did ice skating and magic. Need I say more? Now, after matric, I decided to appear in ice shows as a principal skater and a magic act. And I remember playing Abracaban, the wicked magician in Aladdin. And I'll never forget, after one show, a young lady came up to me and she said, "You do what people dream about doing." Ik kan niet verstaan wat zij bedoeld heeft. En ik heb ze nog gevraagd, "What do you mean?" And she replied, "Most people dream of dancing on the ice and having magical powers. But whoever achieves it, you did." Whoa! That was when I decided to follow my dreams. You're going to have to expand on that a little more. How about starting at the beginning? Well, my father always told me that a university degree allows you to stand with your back against the wall. And that's kind of obvious, I think, because the entertainment lifestyle was and still isn't very stable. So I started my undergraduate studies majoring in communication and psychology. And at the same time, I moved to London, and that was back in the 80s. And I have to tell you, these were tough times. I still remember being kicked off benches at Victoria and Euston Station, where I was trying to sleep as I had no money for rent and for accommodation. But it was this dream that I had that drove me. You see, I believed there was more to life than working a mundane job. I was too creative. Wealth wasn't just about money, but it was about creating memories, living in the moment, and having no regrets. Now, years later, after I wrote my bestseller and shared my life story, my mother was highly upset with me that I'd never phoned them at that time and asked them for help. And in hindsight, I think she never realized that for me, it was about proving to myself that I could create the magic that I believed in. To cut a long story short, I had a South African accent in the UK in the 80s, sold myself as a German magician. That just made things 10 times worse. Yeah. And it was then that I started to understand the importance of effective and strategic interpersonal communication and how you had to actually think before you speak, plan short, effective discourses, and make yourself likable in order to open doors. I literally had everything against me. And if anything, that's where I learned the torment of being judged by preconceived perceptions of people who saw you based on your culture with a South African accent and being German. In fact, I went to so many auditions, I thought my name was next. But one thing I did notice is that all magicians were doing the same tricks. And I had invented a lot of my own routines that I learned at the tip of Africa. So I began lecturing for various magic societies, and I'll never forget my first lecture at the London Magic Circle in front of icons of the industry I'd grown up with and had only known from reading about them in books. The feeling of fooling them and realizing that even though I was brought up in a third world country, I had nothing to fear. I could achieve my dreams. Ich bekam dann auch einige größere Auftritte im West End and from there the Leeds City Varieties Theatre to guest appearances on shows with various high-profile celebrities, landing a weekly spot on HGV's Motormouth, Bruce Forsyth on his Generation Game. And a highlight for me was being represented by the NVB agency and Henry Harrison from the new Vaudeville band. At the time, my wife and I never realized who they were. And to have Henry as the main witness at our wedding will always make their world #1 hit Winchester Cathedral, our wedding song. Aber das ist jetzt genug von mir. Wolfgang, tell me, where did the direction change come from magician to strategic interpersonal communication specialist? I believe that the most important characteristic for success in life is communication. I also believe that nothing in life happens by chance and that we can all create our own destiny. It's just that we must be aware of what is happening around us. And we need to question and learn continuously. But one must also be a realist in life and not always live with one's head up in the clouds. Now, I had started peaking in my career in the UK, and I was performing all over Europe when my wife and I were offered contracts on the cruise liners. Now, realizing that vaudeville entertainment was really not the trend anymore, the world was changing, and I still had a lot to learn, we felt it was the most strategically logical plan to move on to cruise liners. Now, what most people don't realize is that as a headline act on a ship, you do 2 to 3 shows per cruise, and the rest of the time you're a passenger. Now, yeah, I know that may sound awesome and to most people a dream job, but myself as a type A personality, man, I couldn't sit still and suntan all day. So I became involved in more activities on board, from cruise director to leading expeditions on smaller 6-star vessels. Additionally, I had the time to develop ideas, write books, and continue postgraduate studies. And of course, experience the University of Life, which is travel. Now, while at the same time I was honing my communication and performance skills, and I recall overnight visits in ports where I would try and arrange lectures ashore in order to meet locals and to get to know the countries from an insider's point of view. This taught me to adapt and change and learn about and respect various cultures. In fact, interestingly enough, I spent 2 years on Cunard's Vistafjord, where the passenger complement was made up of Americans, British, and Germans. I had to perform in 2 languages simultaneously and cater to 3 cultures. Wow, that was awesome. What a challenge. Thanks for that, but I'm still waiting to hear how the whole speaking concept originated with you. Yes, but you have to understand, the foundation to arriving at this point. After traveling the world, my wife and I decided to settle down in Cape Town, especially after the changes in South Africa and the fact that Cape Town was just one of the most scenic cities in the world for us. Now, at this point, I was a big fish in a small pond. And I realized that I could make a change and further education within the business sector, especially in terms of soft skills and communication. I realized that as a youngster, one is a go-getter. But as you become older and hopefully wiser, one should strive to become a go-giver. This is when I looked at my life and realized I can inspire others to think out of the box and follow their dreams. After all, I had the academic background, plus unheard of real-life experience with experience in intercultural communication. I was a specialist in capturing an audience. So I became an inter-trainer, where I would share authentic messages and use conjuring as a triptych to corporate communication with the aim of moving my audiences away from the cognitive conformity mentality and share with them personal, real-life narrative that self-belief can lead to success. Und so begann eine neue Karriere, with Cape Town as my base, while traveling the world, speaking and performing at various international conferences and events from Bali, Budapest, Prague, Singapore, Tenerife, to hosting the Business Leader Awards at the Burj Al Arab in Dubai back in December of 2015. But that's enough about me. Wolfgang, magic still played a big role in your life. You became the most successful magician in Africa. Tell us more about that. The move from magician to speaker was an unheard of step. And I knew my out-of-the-box ideas would take time to establish and be accepted within the corporate industry. So I started focusing on the television market as I saw an opportunity there, and I thought it was a good way to build my brand. You see, my material was fresh, it was mixed with humor, and soon I became a regular on national television. Now, what I did is I targeted the millennials, and I had numerous mini-series on ETV. Danach wurde ich meine eigene Hauptsendezeit-Fernsehserie angeboten, and the first 13 episodes of Abracadabra was a huge hit. It was awesome. And we even recorded a second season with a further 13 episodes. Now, concurrently, I also launched my own television production company, because this is what I'd studied at university, and I produced the biggest illusion TV series ever in Africa, and it was called Master Magician. And I believe we also hit record viewership ratings with that. This also allowed me to take my international experience, plus my business studies, and play with marketing tactics and ideas. And I experimented with my brand, and I launched a wooden tie and grew a ponytail. And I learned that people may forget your name, but they never forget a look. Ask in South Africa today that magician from back then with the ponytail, wooden tie, they'll tell you who it was. Now, I went to many celebrity functions, fundraising functions, charities, and I noticed the big need for the education of the masses and building hope. So I started changing my magic into routines that were more than just tricks. They shared messages of hope and insight. And this is where I believe that your story, Mr. Strategic Interpersonal Communication Specialist, started happening, if you'll enlighten us. Slowly, the speaking started taking over from the magic as I realized that for the majority of people, they don't think in abstract terms, but rather visually. Now, especially speaking at EMEA and EMEA conferences throughout Africa and the Middle East, I realized that by strategically adding a conjuring trick to clarify a point, I was not only educating but entertaining the audiences and creating instant, long-term cognitive understanding of business concepts and soft skills. Yeah. So soon I was traveling the world again, but not on ships this time, but on planes. In the interim, I became the first two-term national president of the National Speakers Association of SA, plus in 2012, it's awesome, the National Speakers Association of America awarded me the most prestigious certified speaking professional designation held by less than 750 speakers globally at the time. That was really a highlight for me. But that still doesn't quite explain the strategic interpersonal communication specialist title. Please expand on that. Well, the more I traveled and spoke throughout the world, the more I realized that productivity in companies was becoming hampered not only by intercultural miscommunication, but by red tape, policies, and complexity thinking. And this then led me to complete a dissertation at the York St John University in the UK in 2015 on whether complexity thinking inhibits innovation amongst leadership in multinational companies. Now, many speakers today are either only academics or only have life experience. But it is truly unique to have a truly global, verifiable mix of both, plus adding the magic. Now today I've got thousands of students on my online e-courses and am, I believe, one of those few speakers that actually walks their talk. Every week I launch new videos on my YouTube channel and I'm currently on over 8 million views and more than 700 videos. Did I mention to you that everything's absolutely free? Yeah. So in summary, my global life experience as an entertainer, trainer and speaker has made me realize that I have one golden thread that remains constant. And that is my ability to have successfully communicated with people from all walks of life in over 150 countries. Hence, when it comes to strategic, successful interpersonal communication, I have the track record and now share my life and academic lessons with everyone around me. Thank you for watching this brief life story and allowing me the opportunity to clarify how I communicate with everyone out there. I look forward to working with you in the future. Bis dann, tschüss.